Hey, we're in the pit again.
Oh God, look at our nice onboard computer.
Oh, we have the fanciest truck.
Yeah, and
we're dead center in the pit.
we're taking a truckload of gravel freshly dug out from the pit. Look at that dilapidated building. It looks abandoned.
Look, we're truck of the year 2013.
What? Oh my gosh! So surely it means the make.
No, it's just us. It's April 2014, but we're truck of the year.
Oops. Okay. All right. Well, good. Let's.
I'm glad that we get to visit this location in the daylight now, because we get to appreciate all of these textures and models that we didn't really get to get a good look at last time when we got lost.
I love all the textures and models in this game.
Yeah, no, I'm really a fan of the textures and models. Look at those gravel textures, and that shack looks like a location from one of the horror games that Shmorky and Lotax are all the time playing.
Yeah. Euro Truck kind of is a horror game when you think about it. It's all about the jump scares, you know. Jump scares when you kill people by accident, and
killing people.
It examines the moral culpabilities of your character. Yeah, I'm sliding back down. It's fine. I intentionally shifted into reverse. Oh God, I'm gonna run into my own trailer.
Okay, that's not good.
Vroom.
All right. So anyway, we're playing on hard mode apparently.
Didn't have enough speed to make it out the hill. These things are tricky, man.
Yeah.
When you weigh 1 billion tons.
25 tons to be exact, of gravel.
Plus the weight of the truck.
We're carrying rocks, literally rocks.
Tiny rocks. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think they would be very heavy.
Yeah, rocks are notoriously light.
Especially when they're tiny.
But rock and roll is heavy. That wasn't actually the segue yet, but it would have been great if it was.
We're going to talk about music a bit.
Yeah, this is going to be a more music-centric podcast because I've been listening to and thinking about mixtapes lately, and so we're going to talk about mixtapes.
I've been playing and thinking about Metal Gear Solid. So
we're also going to talk about Metal Gear Solid. Speaking of rocks, speaking of things sinking quietly to the bottom of the ocean.
Yes, rocks are solid, like Metal Gear Solid.
And
solid is the only state of matter that can defeat liquid.
I have to tell you that I'd spent I watched Josh playing an hour or two of Metal Gear Solid 2 last night.
It's happening again.
Yep, congratulations.
The beginning of Metal Gear Solid 2. Just that in perspective for anyone who knows Metal Gear Solid.
You know, I mean, but through the first chapter and into the second.
Yeah.
I had watched some of this game being played when I was in college. And when I didn't know any better.
Right.
But I have to say that upon reflection, I spent a fair amount of time last night lying awake and thinking about my experience looking over your shoulder at Metal Gear Solid. It may be one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. It may just be... It's kind of transcendently and intentionally awful.
That's because of the sheer volume of the cutscenes, right? I'm guessing.
That's one of the reasons, but the more I thought about it, the more I was able to, the bizarre jackknifing between the serious tone and the comedy,
that's gameplay
mechanics. It's like this is one of those cases where Josh is convinced that this is actually kind of a brilliant, intentional.
Well,
you know,
not necessarily. But the reason I'm intrigued by Metal Gear Solid at the moment is because the third and seemingly the fifth games and kind of the first game are genuinely really good. But it seems like with every other game, Hideo Kojima decides to make kind of a "fuck you for liking this" sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I want to kind of form a balanced and nuanced opinion of Metal Gear Solid is because it's really hard to find stuff like that on the internet, because people play these games and find that it's full of "fuck you dumbass for playing my game,"
right?
And there's going to be two main reactions to that. There's going to be people who just blindly love Metal Gear Solid and don't catch on to that sort of thing, and who you see a lot of videos telling you why Metal Gear Solid 2 is so good. And mostly it's it's kind of long-winded, but the themes and the cutscenes are kind of interesting when you, at least when you get to the end and reduce what it's all about. which may be true, but it's like that's not really my hesitation in liking this game.
Yeah.
And there's people who say, well, this game clearly doesn't want me to like it, so I'm just not even going to try it. And in other words,
I mean, I feel like that's the sane response.
That is a valid reaction.
I feel,
yes. But it is a game with just doing some stuff, and it's.
Absolutely.
I'm curious to figure out exactly what all that stuff is, and.
To that end, I definitely think that you should continue playing that game, but I don't think that I'm going to be able to bear to accompany you on that journey. I mean, to give you a little background, I don't even know whether I can begin to explain how terrible this is. Trying to explain the plot would not help.
Right.
I'm pretty certain that trying to explain the plot would not help. There are intentionally bad interface decisions constantly, yes. And I mean they must be intentionally bad. You play the first level with no tutorial,
yes,
and then the second level there's a heavy tutorial, like a heavy unskippable tutorial, which makes
sort
sense.
Of skippable. You can't skip at the moments where they start talking, but you can skip it once they have started talking.
Right, but which makes sense, like in terms of what is happening with the character,
right,
and but makes absolutely no sense as gameplay, and so. I mean, and so you can see where Josh is coming from. It's like, that is interesting in that it's intentionally fucking with the barrier between immersion and gameplay and the experience of the character and of the player.
Right.
However, it's incredibly irritating.
Yes, it's downright tedious.
Absolutely. There are so many cutscenes in the game that I would say that over the course of the time that I watched Josh playing, he spent more time watching cutscenes than he did playing the game.
Definitely. The tanker is like the first level is like curiously a long stretch of pretty good gameplay. And it comes together like you don't really need a tutorial.
Yeah. No, it is definitely a hey look, we could have bothered to make this a good game, but we're not.
Yeah.
We're going to do this instead.
In fairness, just as you left, another decent stretch of gameplay was beginning.
And no, the gameplay itself is also.
I think it's pretty good.
There are bits about it which are good, and there are bits about it. I actually like the health system and the way that you reset alerts, and
these things are all problems, but they're also more signs of it being dated than signs of it being straight up poorly designed. This is a pre-Splinter Cell world of stealth,
right? Well, I mean, but it's like the feeling that I have watching this game mostly is just a feeling of deep sympathy for the engineers and the programmers who put together what is at core a relatively decent, okay, good job.
Technology.
Yeah, relatively decent technology. Really, relatively, although watching you play it is not the prettiest example of this gameplay that one can imagine, but that was a slam on Josh's Metal Gear Solid skills.
I haven't played it in so long.
Maybe unwarranted, but there's so many things about it which are kind of cool and kind of like, they move really well together, and they're flowy and and crunchy, and there's a lot of little details of interactivity.
Yeah.
And then it's wasted.
Yeah, you get to hear like the bomb guy's background for 20 minutes, and then he explains like what a bomb is.
Yeah, it's not only a fuck you to the player, but it's a fuck you to the programmers. It's a fuck you to the designers.
Yes,
and I don't understand what they did to deserve that.
A case where I absolutely have no sympathy for this is Metal Gear Solid 4, which doesn't even have like the pretty cool gameplay or the
it feels like less of a waste to me than
Like it just feels like sometimes Hideo Kojima is congratulated for like being this postmodernist deconstructionist genius, whereas really he's just like a baby throwing temper tantrums that he has to keep making Metal Gear Solid even though he doesn't want to.
There's also the fact that the art direction in MSG, I'm just going to call it MSG, is that alright?
Yeah.
The art direction in Madison Square Garden 2 is maddeningly inconsistent in that there's a lot of it that works really well, but whoever is directing it, and that would be Kojima presumably, is so bad at cameras. So terrible. Josh tells me that he gets better at this later on, but
it's all of a sudden, in fact.
Which makes me think that it was intentional too.
It may be.
And like watching it is headache inducing. Listening to it is an exercise in stamina.
Yeah.
Of epic proportions, because the dialogue is terrible and the plot doesn't make any sense.
I'm sure it would be completely unplayable for me if I didn't have like a degree of nostalgia for Metal Gear Solid 2. It's a game I have kind of a soft spot for because I remember the twist that happens at the end and just how crazy it gets at that point, and like some genuinely clever stuff that happens.
Yeah, so we're gonna check in when Josh gets to the end, and I'm gonna watch Josh play through the end pieces.
I hope I get there. Like, after you left, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and play some side missions now, because I'd like to play this game.
Instead of watching a terrible movie.
Instead of getting through the story, yeah. Maybe I'll just start skipping all the cutscenes, but that's kind of contrary to my goal of figuring this thing out.
Well, best of luck, as I believe I've said. So we'll check in with this again and see if, like... But there's no way that I'm going to change my opinion that this is, like, an insultingly terrible piece of work.
Oh, it's definitely insulting. I mean, yes, I think it's very... It's very hostile, and like not for some higher purpose. I really think it's just hostile to video games. Like there's a scene in the end where like the whole theme of the game turns out to be memes, whereas the first game was genes, like memes in the Richard Dawkins sense.
Right.
And it's all about how like what we carry ourselves into the next generation and so on through our creations. And Snake gives a list of the kinds of creations that we can do that with, and it's like films, music, plays, not games. Definitely not games.
Oh God, no. I mean, I think that if there wasn't the slightly weirding aspect of the fact that everything is dubbed and a little bit off kilter, and anime-tastic, I would find it outright revolting in the sort of in the aesthetics in the sort of the bratty young enfant terrible director kind of a way. I would find it just outright revolting, whereas there is at least something slightly interesting going on because of when it was released within the development of critical thinking about video games. Yeah. Josh and I were talking about how BioShock was, the first game to be was the first game to be critically recognized for having themes.
Yeah.
But monosodium glutamate definitely has themes and also that kind of epic sweep, but was ignored by critics. And I thought initially that maybe that it was because the critical consensus wasn't, or that critical body wasn't in place at the time, or because it's, or because there's different expectations because of the Japanese-ness of it. But no, it's just terrible.
It's because the game pushes you away as hard as it can.
Yeah.
1, 3, and 5. It's like Star Trek. It's the odd-numbered ones, except the odd-numbered ones are good in this case. And people like 1, 3, and 5. Their stories are a lot more straightforward. It's just, here's a story about human betrayal.
Yep.
In all three cases. I don't know, man. They still have a lot of cutscenes, but the gameplay is much more meaty.
Mm. Well, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I really wanted to enjoy the silliness of it, and yet it wasn't even letting me enjoy its silliness.
I was talking to Dunk about this yesterday, and apparently, he does just find all the long-winded cutscenes amusing. I tried to.
Well, Dunk is an even bigger anime fan than I am, right?
Yeah.
And Dunk has a very long, history of aesthetic enjoyment of terrible translation errors and bad dubbing and that kind of thing. Which I think that there's a certain kind of joy that can be gleaned out of it simply through that. But
anyway, we can't really segue this into music.
No, I had a good segue.
Oh yeah.
But it was during the gravel pit, and we decided to talk about Metal Gear Solid instead, which is fine.
Yeah,
it is fine. That's fine. It's fine. Frankly, it's fine.
You launched that segue by saying we can't use this as the segue, so you kind of neutralized it yourself.
I'm not blaming you, Josh.
Okay.
I'm simply blaming myself.
Usually when someone keeps repeating it's fine, I assume that I'm being blamed.
Oh, Josh, don't assume that you're being blamed.
Okay.
Josh is blameless. I mean, it's hard to imagine a more inoffensive human being, frankly. Was that
That's
a compliment,
the
ladies
nicest
and
thing
gentlemen?
anyone's ever said to me.
Oh, God. Sorry.
I'm going to be inoffensive and take it in the most positive light possible.
Sorry about the Josh Burns, everybody. I don't know what's gotten into me. Somebody took all of my money this morning. I'm in a little bit of a mood.
Did you guys hear about this Heartbleed thing? It's pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah.
If you change your password, I mean, I don't know if maybe the holes have been patched up already, but if you change your password, there's gonna see the old and the new password. So I've heard, and that's like, oh, good. So I'll just hope nothing bad happens.
Yeah, and something bad happened, but it happened to me in such a completely bizarre way that I keep having these theories about other ways that people could have gotten a hold of my bank account information, because it was like they wrote a fucking check, so they needed to have my bank account number.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of sites they could have gotten that from. I guess they could have gotten that from PayPal or but
and they use it to pay off their American Express
They used
card.
to pay off their American Express card, which is like, unless somebody has used the information they gleaned about me to steal my identity and to start an American Express card in my name, it seems like a very strange thing. I mean, it could be, I guess, be an Amex that they've created under some third party's name or something, but
maybe it's an Amex that they stole from somebody else.
Could be, but in any old road, it is a complete shit show, and it'll be really interesting to see how it comes together. But yeah, so if I'm a little spiky, that was a nice castle that went by. Oh yeah. Just then, by the way.
I didn't really notice it that well, but I have the vaguest memory of passing a nice castle.
It's like, this is all I need. It's been a fucking hell of a month already, and this is all I need.
Yeah. Trucks are all you need. I know that's
trucks are all
exactly what you were saying.
Trucks are all I need. God, if I could just live in one of those
windmills,
pleasantly rendered windmills. Yeah, those aren't the kind of windmills that you can live in, unfortunately. I was going to say daffodils, which makes less sense from a logistical standpoint, but more from a poetical standpoint.
Yeah.
If I could just perch atop one of those high tension wires forever, like a little chickadee.
It's too bad. That's the one detail that's missing from this rendition of Europe is the chickadees on the wires.
There aren't any birds in this game, Josh.
That's what I'm saying.
Why are we playing this game?
I don't know.
They could at least have some fucking ducks.
They should have made a Euro Truck bird watching simulator. Maybe someone can mod in some birds.
I'm
if
sure
there's any modders who listen in, get to it.
Bird modders, blood matters, libel and plague.
You know what you sound like? A metal singer. You know what kind of music we don't really listen to? Metal.
That's true. We don't really listen to metal. So anyway, I've been listening to this radio show by Adam Buxton. If you don't know who Adam Buxton is, he is this short, hairy man with a really juvenile sense of humor who I quite like, who used to be part of a double act. I could spend an entire Trucks episode talking about British double acts, frankly, and how fascinating I find what happens to them after they split up and both pursue different careers, and the kind of the humorous tension in their comments about each other afterwards, particularly the comments that the less successful member of the former double act has about the more successful member, and the ways in which that's measured, and how like a certain amount of ironic resentment is sort of de rigueur for the comedy.
Yeah, you can totally feel free to go on about that. It'd make my job a little bit easy.
You have no opinions about former or current British double acts?
Not only Hugh and Laurie.
Only Hugh and Laurie. I mean
that Fry and Laurie.
Hugh and Laurie.
Hugh and Laurie is one person. That's
have they split up, Hugh and Laurie? That would be a problem. That's actually really, that is sort of the ideal double act split, because they both went on to be successful in very different ways in very different venues, which is the thing that you would hope for.
Yeah.
But and they have nothing but
the opposite of animosity.
Yeah, whatever. They have nothing but friendliness. Affection, bonhomie they have for each other. Where are we?
Rennes.
Wien?
Which is in
Germany.
No, it's Wien. I thought it was Rennes. That's with my blue arrows blocking the word a little bit.
The wren, the king of the birds.
Fuck this roundabout. We're just gonna skate right off it.
I love it. Get me off of this English roundabout.
So something Isaac did recently was make a mixtape. I believe that's the topic.
Yeah. So anyway, I was listening to this radio show that this guy who is out in Buxton, who you should enjoy, did, wherein he not only put music on the radio, which is the thing that you do, but he did so in a thematic way, and he did so in a way that was meant to sort of simulate a mixtape, like in a mixtape that was for different purposes. And the taxonomy of the mixtape is an interesting thing, because the heyday of the mix, I'm tempted to say that it's sort of gone by the wayside. There's this...
I disagree. I mean, just look at 8 tracks.
Right. I mean, well, that's the sort of thing. It's like... A mixtape is something that's very easy to sort of be nostalgia about, because the way the technology and the way it's presented have changed a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's no longer a cassette tape that you give to someone as kind of a precious object of sentiment.
Exactly, it is now a figment.
Yeah.
And it did go through a period, because I think I can say this without fear of contradiction, is that a mixed CD is an extremely lame object. There was unfortunately like a decade or so where that was the only option.
Yeah.
And I think that the art of making a mix sort of suffered during that period, because who wants a mix CD?
Yeah.
Who wants a CD, frankly? CDs are terrible.
I only listen to CDs because it's the way these classic rock tracks were meant to be heard.
That's a good joke. We're both very tired today. Listening a little bit of the usual zip, the bonhomie, the flow. But anywho,
there's a lot of different ways to make a mixtape.
Yeah, and it's like there's different. There's sort of like the basic, I heard some cool songs, let's throw these cool songs on the thing.
Yeah.
Approach. There's the I'm going to put together a mix for a loved one, or a new potential romantic interest thing. Have you ever done that?
No.
Oh, okay. I certainly have.
I avoid cheesy gestures in my romances like the plague, for better or worse.
Oh, your poor girlfriends.
Sorry I never made you a mixtape, Monica. Let me know if you want one.
Have you ever brought her flowers, Josh?
No, I have not.
Jesus Christ.
I associate buying of flowers with an unfortunate chapter from my past.
Oh no. That's really unfortunate. Monica doesn't get flowers because Josh is traumatized.
Maybe I'll buy you flowers someday, Monica.
This isn't awkward enough to be funny, it's just awkward enough to be terrible.
Why are you interrogating me then?
Because it's funny.
Oh, you hope it will be funny.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be funny, but it turns out just to be bad.
What is your strategy when putting together a mixtape? I have a strategy. I'm curious to hear yours.
Well, I don't know if I was done enumerating the sort of because I mean your strategy varies depending on what the purpose of the mix is.
I see.
Because you got your general mixes, you got your mixes that are for specific people.
I suppose my mixes all have the same purpose in that light.
Whether they are romantically people or not romantically people, but people.
Right.
And then there are mixes that you are trying to bang together around a specific theme.
Yeah.
Which is a tricky one. And the narrower the theme is, the trickier it gets, because the more likely you are to include a piece of bad music because it is thematically appropriate, even though listening to it is kind of a drag or a chore.
I have done that.
I
eventually found a perfect replacement for that track, but I haven't gone back and remade the mixtape because the way I do mixtapes, that would take some work.
Right, so how do you make mixtapes?
I like to actually open up an audio editor and really make sure all the track transitions are perfect, because frequently, like, you'll find I only do the fit them to a theme thing. At least that's all I've ever done thus far. And but frequently you'll find two tracks that would be perfect one after the other, except for the fact that, like, this one has this long fade out and this one has this long fade in. And like they you just get this big lump of silence in the middle, which doesn't help anything at all. And so, you know, there's some real fun to be had by not just like crossfading tracks in a case like that, but also like maybe cutting off the outro, cutting off the intro, letting us slam in one piece, just lead straight into another. Hey, that flute sounds kind of like that flute, and they can maybe lead into one another perfectly.
Yeah.
I like it to be a continuous experience, I suppose.
I mean, this is sort of the place where the like friend mix kind of bleeds into the DJ mix, because I feel like the thing that you're describing there is closer to what a DJ mix is.
Right. Yeah.
And that is like, I mean, and that's a cool thing to do. I have done that occasionally. What I tend to do is that I tend to try to make the natural or like the pre-existing rhythm of the transitions and like the seconds work within. That's sort of part of the challenge, is like having them work. But I've definitely, in extreme cases where I really want a particular sequence but can't, it's shit on its own, I've gone in and chopped off at seconds or edited things down or, you know, spliced tracks or what have you.
Yeah.
As a practice, that's more similar to like the old school, actually making a mixtape by dubbing stuff onto a tape thing, because you used to have that sort of, like really minute control over your transitions.
Yeah.
But you also were dealing with this really clunky technology.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, you have the same minute control now. It's just a matter of whether you're bothered to do it. And also, as you said, it makes the mixtape a lot
more work.
Not only more work, but also less modular.
Yeah.
Like, you can't upload it to any of the popular mix sharing sites.
Well, you can upload it to SoundCloud.
You can upload it to SoundCloud. I mean, if you're willing to like have it get taken down from SoundCloud as soon as anybody notices. But
depending. But yeah, I mean, it does end up in a situation where you kind of need to upload it, usually as a RAR with like even maybe a README to document what tracks come.
Right, because you're the track listing is also the important thing. The advent of the MP3 mixes allowed people to sort of get around the necessity of making a cover.
Yeah.
Which used to be a huge thing, because if you didn't, and that was the other problem with mix CDs, is that people would just scribble on the disc and it sucked.
I mean, some digital music fans do like to produce cover images for their.
Yeah, as I often do.
Yeah.
But it's not a necessity the way that it used to be, because
stick it in the folder and title it cover.jpg, and most decent media players will automatically pick up on it. It's kind of cool.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like,
I wish I still had Photoshop for that sort of thing. I would have totally put a cover on the one I did.
There's I there were several years when I used the GIMP on my Linux laptop.
I can never figure out the interface for that. I trained myself to use Photoshop at like a beginner level, and any derivative interface is like, what? Everything's in the wrong place.
These are the places where little bits of effort go into.
Yeah.
The sort of the latest advent of the YouTube playlist, which is the thing that I slapped together the other night, is the lowest effort mix ever. Essentially, it has its disadvantages in that you can't put anything, like by definition you can't put anything too obscure on it, because it's not going to.
Yes, you're constrained by probably the worst limitation in history, which is it can only be music which is on YouTube.
Yeah, but the thing is that's, I mean, for certain kinds of mixes, that is like not a constraint at all.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the stuff that I put on that mix that I did is actually, you know, it's pretty niche shit.
Yeah.
You know, but it's the kind of niche shit that's been around for a while, and so there are like 45-year-old, well, at this point probably 50-plus-year-old nerds who have meticulously documented everything Syd Barrett has ever done, making sure that all of his ephemera are up on YouTube in one way or another. So, like, as long as you don't want stuff that's too new or too weird, then it's actually a relatively comprehensive library, and it has the advantage of you not having to actually own /pay/download/pirate music.
But if your mixtape is the latest tracks Kanye West has been featured on, then you're in luck. Were you about to drink last night's beer?
I was, but it was empty. I just wanted to sniff it.
It's a good smelling beer.
This is a good smelling beer. The Harpoon, the Long Thaw White IPA, I can't recommend it enough. It's delicious. And it smells nice even the following day, unlike me.
Yeah.
So, hey, I gotta do a self-burn occasionally.
Pretty good one.
Yeah. Not accurate, though. I always smell really good.
The freshest motherfucker alive.
I am so minty fresh. Y'all motherfuckers don't shower enough, let me just tell you that.
It's probably true.
I wasn't talking about you.
I know. You were talking about the audience of our demographics say that it's probably true that our listeners don't shower enough. Guys, what's wrong with you?
I just smelled Josh, incidentally, and he's doing all right.
I haven't even showered this morning.
Yeah. The man has a pleasant musk.
Are people's musks really that different from one another?
Oh, yeah.
Let's make a mixtape of people's musks.
Oh, that's really complicated. What does this person's smell remind me of, musically speaking?
That's not what I was thinking. I was just thinking a catalog of smells.
In musical form?
No, just smells.
How would he... How...
Scratch and sniff. What is that technology?
Right. Scratch and sniff technology. Well, I'll get right on that then.
But yeah, what song does my smell remind you of? Let's do it.
It would have to be something warm and dusty. It's definitely something on vinyl.
Don't you wish your girlfriend was hot like me?
No, I'm thinking maybe like thinking maybe something like Leon Redbone.
I don't know.
Something nice and bluesy.
You
got a bluesy aroma.
We had talked about constructing a mixtape.
While we did this,
it seems like
that's a fool's errand.
Yeah,
certainly.
it seems impossible.
But I feel like what we should do is that we should construct a mixtape to go with this Trucks.
Maybe. Which one? What kind of mixtape?
We could
background music mixtape.
Well, I mean, that would be one option.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we've pretty much already exhausted all of the background music that we know over the last 27 episodes of Trucks.
What I haven't done is a video game background music episode. I could, put some FTL on there, maybe some...
Didn't you already do an FTL episode?
No. We talked about that, but it didn't actually go. We didn't do it.
Okay. You're right.
We could do that.
It's true. We could also just make a mixtape of awesome songs. It would be a good excuse to do that.
I mean, be careful, because no vocals.
Oh, I wasn't thinking of putting it behind the Trucks mix necessarily,
okay.
but offering it as a companion piece. Maybe we should do a themed Driving Across Europe mix.
Oh my God.
That's what we should do. We should use our combined skill and judgment to make a mix that you could listen to if you were actually trucking across Europe.
Yeah. I really want to make a mixtape. Probably different from that one.
Okay.
Actually, this one, you could totally hear this one. That could totally be the same mixtape of music, which could have been on Blue Jam.
Oh, yeah. So these are the different kinds of themes that,
Yeah.
Because there's so many different things. Like, if you have a theme mixtape about driving across Europe, you're going to want, here's some driving songs. Here's a song about Europe. Or do you want to capture the mood?
I would with the Blue Jam one, I was thinking music that you would be actually likely to hear on a British radio station, particularly in the dead of night.
Okay, I mean, specifically a British radio station, or like.
Well,
another way to take that is to say there's a very specific kind of feeling or mood that you get. We should explain that Blue Jam.
You should listen to Blue Jam.
You should probably listen to Blue Jam. It's really good. It's a radio show that Chris Morris, the genius Chris Morris, put together 10 plus years ago,
90s,
the late 90s, which is half incredibly distressing dark comedy and half really smooth
just deep cuts from the 90s,
trip hop, and
good cardigans. It's actually really eclectic, but it feels. The magical thing about it is that even though the music is really eclectic, the dark comedy which appears in between the music does this brilliant job of unifying the aesthetic.
Right. Which is, another mixtape thing is that for some advanced practitioners, there is this whole thing where what you put in between the songs is sort of linking ephemera or fluff.
Yeah,
is also
that's exactly.
Is also
you
quite
hear
important.
it on old hip hop albums, where they have quotes from old sci-fi movies.
Yeah, which evolved into skits.
The
Unfortunately,
cosmic rays.
Yeah, or I used to take tracks, little linking tracks from those old hip hop albums, put them onto my mixes to to assist with my
You should just download some old movies.
transitions. So here's a question. Like when I make a mix, the thing that I use with my ears, I oftentimes get too focused on the transitions. Like I will spend a lot of time making sure that I have stuff that flows together really smoothly using some sort of set of arcane criteria that only makes sense in my head, and not really pay attention to whether I'm actually including the best songs a lot of the time. Do you find that that's a problem for you, or?
I mean, you'd have to be the judge of that. You've heard a couple of my mixtapes.
Yeah, no, but like in terms of your process, do you sometimes have to like come up for air and be like, maybe this actual song is the problem, not the transition I'm trying to create?
Mostly, like, it's because the tone of a mixtape kind of evolves while you're putting it together, right? It's like, during that IDM one, for a long time, I wanted it to have a chapter of like this like highly classically oriented, like super cerebral stuff. Like Ryuichi and Sakamoto's collaborations with Alvin Noto, and stuff like that. Like, but as the mixtape grew up, and like for a long time that was just sitting on the track list, and it's like I need to find something that can lead into this, but I just couldn't. And over time, the intelligent part of the mixtape sort of melted away. And it just became this fun dance music.
It is interesting to me how, for me as well, oftentimes the way that the concept that I had when I started the mix kind of melts away.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in this...
this is in fact true of all creative endeavors.
It is. But, the mixtape is like... It's such a borderline creative endeavor because you're curating at best.
Yeah. Hey, we're in the DLC zone.
Nice. But it is interesting to see how it does in fact function like any other sort of composing behavior.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the act of creating an album style object from somebody else's work, and the album style object certainly in many cases can stand on its own.
Album style object. I like it.
You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. So it's like, for example, I mean, really. The one that I put together last night, which we'll link to, I guess,
sure.
Or the other night, is pretty half-assed. It's a YouTube mixtape. It's very short because I did it when I was like trying to get to sleep at 2 a.m. But I started with a very specific theme in mind, which was songs by songwriters who are having breakdowns or had mental health difficulties.
Yeah,
and it's like. That was too broad, right? I mean, like, I put things like Queen's I'm Going Slightly Mad on there to begin with.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, I clearly have a vibe developing here based on the better songs from the selection that I already have, which means that I'm going to have to jettison like 2 or 3 different things. I can't put Nirvana on here, and and then it's sort of an interesting through line presented itself in that there was actually a common sound to all of these people. If I'm not going, it's like I wanted to eschew people who are just like everything's terrible, blah, and it just seemed like nice but unhinged.
Yeah,
and like there's a genuine, like, I think that there was something intrinsic about psychedelia and the sounds of psychedelia that are, I mean, probably because a lot of people did damage their brains taking LSD during the period when this was done, that is related to that kind of disordered thinking, and I found that interesting. And so I got something interesting to think about out of this process based on the fact that I had to pick and choose while I was making it.
Yeah. That's
a good process of mixtape. If you're making, like, properly making a mixtape, you should start out, like, when you're starting to order things with twice as many tracks as actually are going to end up going on there, and you should end up having a pretty substantial discard pile. I often make second mixes out of the stuff that I kicked off of the first mix.
It is funny how you'll grow this giant discard pile, but then you'll also find yourself, I need this one track with this particular vibe.
I can't find it!
And nothing from the discard
I've heard
pile.
so much music in my life, I can't remember a song right now. Any one of them.
Yeah.
I just can't think of a song.
Yeah. My most successful mixtape, it's kind of cool how they're all their own animal, but not only from a listening perspective, but from a creation perspective.
Sure.
The most successful one I made was just last summer. I was like, I'm going to make a Songs of the Summer mixtape, and all of the songs are going to be either from 2012 or 2013. In other words, they're all going to be recent, trendy, hip.
Sure.
Except for certain tracks which are going to be ancient. Like I opened it up on Summertime, which was kind of an intentionally silly gesture, and I closed it on this like fake old pop song from Blade Runner, where like there's a long verse about the passing of the seasons, and in the middle there I just slapped some bossa nova in there, and like mostly it was an excuse to dig up a lot of really cool happening music, like stuff that it felt good to be abreast of, because it's like these are some deep cuts from the trendy world right now.
That brings to mind another sort of wrinkle in mixtape creation, which is that it was a lot of it was interesting. It was when Buxton did an episode where the theme was like this is the sort of mixtape that you would make for like a new potential like romantic interest in your life, and like most of his tracks didn't seem to have been chosen for their romantic,
right,
or content,
but for their posturing potential.
Exactly, for like, and not even for and like his guest, he has guests on, and they choose things. Like his guests picked things which were like, this is an attempt to show how I am. He chose Belle and Sebastian and Motorhead in an effort to show that he was both sensitive and like potentially dangerous.
Oh God!
And
who is this guy?
Oh, John.
He sounds dangerous.
John Ronson, who is you may have heard him on This American Life. He was the guy who wrote the book that the movie Men Who Stare at Goats was based on. He's a documentarian who spends all of his time talking to crazy people, essentially, and then basically put on a Jeffrey Lewis song about terrible anxiety to communicate what he was actually really like.
That sounds like that would have to be done with a certain amount of humorous self-awareness.
Oh, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah,
and then Buxton's picks mostly seemed to be there to communicate that he liked cool music,
right?
Rather, than anything else as a status thing.
Sure.
Which is an interesting thing about mixtapes, is that so much of your musical taste is wrapped up in coolness.
Yeah. And
how you interact with status.
Yeah, I mean,
through that bit.
I have totally embraced that. A lot of people I feel reject the status of listening to cool music, and I think that those people are just jealous that they're cool. What I would say is that this reminds me of a sort of series of thoughts I've been having about outfits, about clothing, and how it's like I asked this question in this meme that I was putting around. It's like, do you have an outfit? What's your best outfit? And a lot of people are like, I don't have a best outfit. Yeah.
And that makes me sad, because like,
you guys should love yourselves enough to have a best outfit.
Right. I mean, and yet it's like there was.
Like, that outfit doesn't necessarily have to be trendy. It just has to be one that you like.
And
if you like wearing your Homestuck shirt, then great, that's it.
There's a radio show where, which was another British radio show. I listened to a lot of BBC because my workday is so boring. There was a woman who was talking about how she hated the way that she dressed for most of her life because her body didn't look good in any of the things that were ever popular,
right,
or trendy or stuff. And it's like, and it turns out that for this short Scottish lesbian, the answer was to dress like an English gentleman, and it's like it's what worked, you know. But the thing about it was that she was able to derive pleasure from it because it was coherent and intentional, and also didn't give a fuck.
Right.
Which is the essence of cool.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not so much listening to cool music that's important. It's having a taste that, or having a sort of taste matrix that is coherent.
Yeah.
And that you are prepared to defend and to celebrate.
Yeah.
Confidence is key more than anything else.
That is one side of it. There is also the side that some music will just get people in especially in a place like New York. Listening to some music will cause you to be trendy.
Yeah,
and
it depends on what particular group of people you're trying to create favor with.
Yeah,
and
there are some groups where listening to Jay-Z's new album will make you trendy, and avoid that group because they are out of touch.
But I don't give a fuck about as a general matter about the people who listen to cool music. That's not a tribe that I feel.
Oh, we stopped recording. I think we might have run out of disk space. Hold on, everybody. Sorry about that. Hopefully it wasn't out for too long.
Well, we could put iTunes visualizations or something.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we were talking about trendiness.
Yeah, I mean, music is definitely a huge way of trying to find your tribe, and like Josh is more comfortable with cool kids than I am as a general matter.
Mm-hmm.
But that relates to the other thing about it that I wanted to get across, which is that, as you were saying, there was like these...
What the fuck are you doing?
Oh, not giving you room. If we... yes, thank you. He's gonna do... Nope, they're waiting for you now. What you're trying to communicate in the mixtape. It's like there's ironies, like what you were doing with like, oh, I'm going to be clever and do this, which is a little bit off my theme, and this, which is a little bit off my theme. It's very delicate, and it's very difficult to see whether other people are going to get the joke.
Yeah,
which is sort of part of the the lovely thing about a mixtape in general is that you're putting together something that is both very personal and often quite incomprehensible.
Yeah,
and unless you provide extensive liner notes, which is kind of cheating, to explain the jokes and to explain where this music is coming from and what the theme is that brings it together. What you're doing really is putting something out there and hoping that somebody will appreciate the jokes that you put into it, and kind of the point is to not explain them.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I hope came through. I'm going to explain it because it was a year ago. I think what I hope came through from like slapping a bossa nova track in the middle of my mixtape, which hopefully did actually like flow well musically.
Absolutely.
Was that it proved a kind of deeper tastefulness. Like I do just listen to cool music, but also like this classic shit,
Right.
Like
I'm
it's
completely
unashamed.
pretty much essentially self-aggrandizing.
Yeah, I'm completely unashamed of the fact that mixtape was basically an effort to prove myself tasteful, which I think, some people despise that sort of thing when they come across it, but I tend to value it. I mean, I think that's something that Diplo does very well.
He's a DJ, it's his job.
Yeah, right, totally, but like, there's the kind of DJ who like respects the vibe of whatever room he's in, and there's the kind of DJ who just wants to like build his profile as an awesome DJ, and he's the latter.
Yeah.
And like, it's harder to be good at that, but he is hella good at that.
I think that's absolutely the case.
Yeah.
I think we could. You were mentioning at some point that we should put together a blue jammy thing, the two of us. I think that would be a fun project.
Yeah, let's do it.
And that would give us a chance to put together the music as well.
Yeah. You seem skeptical that it was possible.
I'm less skeptical now. I don't think that we have to make it particularly funny.
Yeah. Just weird.
Just weird. That's the refuge of broken brand comedy. As long as it's weird, it works. Oh boy, yeah, the secret language of mixtapes. I definitely have made mixtapes in my time where the point of it was to demonstrate that I was cool and that I had good taste. But after a while, I became...
Did you see how that was almost perfect?
Yeah, and then really wasn't.
Oh, well, I'm going to get it next time.
Then over time, I became certain that I did in fact have taste.
Yeah. And
became less interested in demonstrating it. And became more interested in the ways in which my taste differed from taste, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I find it more interesting that I like songs that most people don't like than when I like songs that they do, if you see what I mean. And by most people, I mean most people who are in the know.
Yeah.
Or, whatever cognoscenti I'm trying to model myself after.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in both. I don't know why this isn't counting.
I think it's being particularly stringent today.
Oh, this is bullshit.
Or maybe we just went to the wrong place.
There's a big arrow!
Maybe we weren't supposed to go to Lurch after all.
It's a trick. We got the wrong order form.
Yeah, no, I was, maybe we damaged the gravel too much.
Yeah, that's funny. The gravel is damaged. Like, some of it's chipped, I guess.
Yeah, we lost some of it. That's what it was. It flew out of the truck.
That makes...
breaking people's windshields.
You really held that to make sense.
Thank you. I for things I like, I'm totally willing to go to bat for my immersiveness. Oh, that works.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
Oh, it's because we had such a short trailer.
Oh yeah.
You were actually in the wrong part of the thingy.
Could be. Oh, did I level up?
Yay! You're a master.
I was a master before.
Okay.
I think they're all master from now on.
Hey, wow! All right.
What do you say to some flammable liquids?
I would. I always say yes to flammable liquids.
All right.
We should really develop a cocktail that we can make where you set it on fire.
Put sambuca in it. I love sambuca.
Dude, next time.
All right.
It's yours to buy.
Peace out, everybody.
Goodbye. Check out our mixtape.